Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to my channel. My name is Paul, the Canadian Snowman, here with the third installment of the Winter War between Finland and the Soviets. The excitement. Yeah, we're on number three of the Winter War. Yeah, I just said that. Uh, so basically, we're at kind of a stalemate. Ru- Russia. I mean, the Soviets. They've made some pretty good. They've moved in to Finland and actually made some pretty good ground on them. They're taking a lot of losses though. Near the end there, Finland kind of did pretty good at pushing back. Uh, but there's no real like winner right now. There's no one's kind of just took control and just been decisive and said, "I'm taking this war." Uh, Thank you guys for the comments, guys. This is why I love the comments. Like you guys were saying in the comments that Finland is more used to this kind of like frigid cold because like obviously like I was thinking about Russia is a giant country, and so I'm not sure a lot of the troops were from down south where it's probably still cold, but not as cold as it is in Finland. So they're probably not used to those conditions. I was also told that in the beginning of this war, the Soviets were still like wearing their green camouflage or their green coats or whatever it is, and Finland was already in their like winter gear. So I'm sure that played a big deal on trying to keep yourself warm, and plus it's kind of hard because the Soviets, they're not on their home turf, so they don't they just know the roads that were already there before this war started. I mean, as like they didn't have. I mean, they had tanks and all, but like they didn't they didn't have tanks. Really can't go through that deep snow like off-roading kind of thing. Really, I don't think so. Anyway, like anyways, yeah. So they're kind of stuck to the road, which makes it pretty predictable. For the Finland to kind of know which direction they're coming from because they just can't you know they don't know the landscape and everything. So, and obviously that's Finland's home turf, so they can probably set up snipers or whatnot up in like you know off the main path, and kind of keep an eye on things. But yeah, here we go. Pretty awesome stuff so far. It's getting pretty exciting. I'm expecting part three Winter War in the Arctic. So kind of curious to see kind of who takes the what's it called, the bull by the horns and goes with it, right? I think that's the first time ever I've ever used that term before. But yeah, we're gonna jump into this. Also, you guys should definitely check out the Geography Now video that I just did. Pretty awesome country. It's pretty crazy country. You'll be disappointed. But anyways, we're gonna jump right into this, dudes and dudettes. All right, Kings and Generals, War in the Arctic, 3, 2, 1, bam. Oh yeah, if you haven't yet, please hit that like and subscribe button. I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Kings and Generals. My drink, though. Where's my drink? Way back there.
The Winter War had proven the ferocious resistance that the Finnish people could offer. The Soviets had already lost thousands of soldiers in the first few engagements, and the cold of the northern winter was like a noose around their neck. And although the main Soviet goals were in the south, and the majority of the troops of both armies were concentrated in the Karelia region, some of the bloodiest...
I gotta zoom back and get my drink. Sorry, guys. Mouth is dry. All right, sorry about that. I wanted to get it before we really got into this. Bam.
The troops of both armies were concentrated in the Karelia region. Some of the bloodiest battles of the war took place in the cold of the Arctic at Salla and Suomussalmi. If you're interested in the history of this era, don't forget to check out our second channel, The Cold War. The link is in the top right corner. And if you want to command a modern army to victory, the sponsor of this video, Conflict of Nations, is a great choice. The game features a resource-driven war economy influenced by for. Support our channel and receive an amazing new player pack available for the next 30 days by downloading Conflict of Nations via the link in the description. In the north, General Viljo Tuompo had only one mission: to assemble his scarce forces and mount a defensive line in the huge 800-kilometer-long border that runs from Lieksa in the south to Petsamo on the Barents Sea. The Soviets, meanwhile, had two objectives: to cut off Finland from its border with Sweden by seizing the important port of Oulu in the Gulf of Bothnia, and to take the strategic port of Petsamo on the Barents Sea and then advance on to Rovaniemi. The Soviet 9th Army of Commander Mikhail Dukhanov was in charge of the offensive against Oulu, but the only road accessible for the Soviets led first to the village of Suomussalmi. The town would first have to be taken if Dukhanov wanted to ever reach the coast of Bothnia. At dawn on November 30th, 1939, the 163rd Motor Rifle Division advanced near the hamlet of Lonka. The commander of the division, Andrei Zelentsev, divided his forces for a two-pronged attack on Suomussalmi, with the 759th Regiment advancing through the Raate road and the 81st and 662nd Regiments advancing towards Pallavaara. But at Juntisranta, Zelentsev lost control of the 662nd, led by Colonel Sharov, which struck north towards Haapavaara, leaving only the 81st to attack Suomussalmi from the north. Meanwhile, the 759th...
What does it mean they lost control? What? I guess I didn't quite get that, and I just took a different path?
Attack Suomussalmi from the north. Meanwhile, the 759th encountered the Finnish 15th Battalion at the Pareksenjoki River. The Soviets assaulted the defensive line on the frozen river several times, but were repelled. On December 3rd, the Soviets managed to encircle the defensive positions, forcing the Finns to retreat. Failing to notice that their foe had retreated, the Red Army waited a full day for their artillery to arrive, and then another day to bombard the now deserted defensive line. Further south, the elite 54th Mountain Rifle Division was sent to advance towards the town of Kumo in a pincer movement against Suomussalmi. The town was defended by the 25th Regiment, which managed to stop the Soviet advance by conducting guerrilla attacks. At Suomussalmi, only...
It seems like a couple mistakes already by the Soviets. I mean, it seems like they went the wrong way, and then bam, they retreated all the way back, and they're shooting at nothing. Literally nothing. You don't say, yes, they thought maybe Finland's heads were down, and they were just kind of trying to hold position there. But wow, it just seems like a big blunder when you could gain a lot of land. And Finland, by the time you guys realize it could move back up there, because they're probably where are they at? I thought they'd be following us down this road, but they're not. So I wonder how that plays out.
Only a small force defended the town, as the Finns didn't think that the Soviets would invade through the vast virgin forests of central Finland. The overwhelmed Finns held out against the 81st's attack until December 7th, when they finally decided to retreat towards the south side of Lake Käntäjärvi.
And there you go, Soviets, man. You do some guerrilla warfare yourself, man. You got to take the unexpected path, because Finland's not expecting you to come from the woods and everything. It might take longer and be a lot harder, but I think the payoff is is very big if you can make it through. But wow, they did it, so that definitely surprised me right there.
Suomussalmi was put to the torch before the withdrawal, as the Finns didn't want their enemies to get the town's resources. The following day, the 759th reached the town from the south and regrouped with the 81st. Despite their initial success, Zelentsev had suffered many casualties due to Finnish resistance and frostbite, and now his forces were dwindling. At the same time, Colonel Hjalmar Salasvuo took command of the disparate Finnish forces scattered in the Suomussalmi area, and regrouped them into Task Force Selaswo. Their objective was to take back the key town of Suomussalmi. On December 11th, the Finns started their counteroffensive, severing the invaders' line of communication from Raate on December 13th and cutting their northwestern supply route 2 days later. The Soviets wouldn't sit idly by waiting. Zelentsev attempted to repel the Finnish forces, but he was pushed back to Suomussalmi. And from the east, Dukhanov sent the 44th Rifle Division to reinforce Zelentsev, although the forward elements of this division were also repelled by the resilient Finns on the Raate Road, led by Colonel Johan Mäkiniemi. But Selaswo was also struggling with holding down the northwestern route, and his attacks into the village were failing as well. By the night of December 18th, Selaswo decided to pull back, although he nevertheless kept sending small forces to disrupt Soviet preparations. On the Raate Road, Selaswo reinforced Mäkiniemi's forces with 1 howitzer and a machine gun company. From the 17th to the 24th of December, the Finns defended their control of the road with 350 men against an overwhelming 14,000 soldiers from the 44th. These soldiers were elite, but they had been demoralized by the Finn terror, so despite their numerical advantage, they couldn't break the position of Task Force Selaswo. Trapped in Suomussalmi, Zelentsev...
I guess that's that big thing about like everyone's fighting on the road, and then kind of like guess the 300, if you have 14,000 men, but they're all kind of like all stuck in this one area, it doesn't take that many men to kind of hold them back, because, it's different if you use all those men and make it wide and kind of engulf them. But if you can't do that, then the numbers really don't matter if all you can do is go forward, So, yeah, I guess it doesn't really surprise me that they were able to hold them off, but, it's definitely impressive,
Knew that the situation was unbearable. Having lost 1,500 men, the commander asked the Soviet High Command permission to retreat, but he was denied, as they believed the 44th was finally approaching. Meanwhile, at Haapavaara, Sharov's 662nd was stopped at the shores of Lake Piespäjärvi by the Finnish 16th Battalion under Major Palari. Outnumbered, Palari held off the Soviet advance and started a counter-offensive on December 8th that managed to throw the invaders on the defensive. Palari himself was wounded though, and Colonel Paavo Sissidaival took command of the battalion, quickly forming Task Force Susi north of Palovaara. Their objective was to recapture Palovaara and from there move on to take back the main Soviet supply route through Yundisranta. On December 11th, Sissidaival intercepted a radio transmission from which the Finns learned that the 662nd had lost 10% of their forces from frostbite and that reinforcements were not coming to aid them. Sissidaival then sent the 16th Battalion to take Palovaara, but the Finns faced heavy resistance and only managed to take the crossroads by December 13th. On December 14th, as Sissidaival was preparing for the counter-offensive, Sharov launched an ill-advised attack towards Ketola village. The Soviets were defeated, losing 150 more men and had to retreat. Desperate, they started moving southwards, trying to link up with Zelentsev's forces at Suomussalmi, but they were stopped by the 16th Battalion at Palovaara. Furthermore, Sissidaival chased them from behind and surrounded them. Wow. In an act of cowardice, Sharov abandoned his men and escaped back to the Soviet Union.
What?
The 662nd fought tenaciously, but only 300 men managed to retreat to Yundisranta. When they finally reached friendly soil, they saw their courage rewarded with the execution of Sharov. On December 22nd, Dukhanov was replaced by Commander Vasily Choykov due to his incompetence. Despite the fact that most of the 44th were still in transit, Choykov ordered Zelentsev and the 44th's commander, Alexei Vinogradov, to commence a simultaneous assault on the Finns, trying to gain a breakout. In the end, Zelentsev started the attack alone on December 24th and was forced to halt it by Christmas. Meanwhile, General Mannerheim reinforced Salasvuo with the 9th Division to prepare for a final assault on Suomussalmi. As the 44th was amassing at the Raate road in front of the Finns, Salasvuo decided to use his forces to attack Zelentsev from the northwest of the village. 4 battalions were assigned to Task Force Kari under Major Kalle Kari for this assault. On December 27th, the operation started, with Kari's forces advancing over the frozen lake Oraviselka towards Holkoniemi. There, Kari was halted by Zelentsev's 81st Regiment, and a chaotic struggle ensued. By night, the 81st had suffered many casualties, retreating back to Suomussalmi to regroup with the 163rd. The Soviets continued to offer fierce resistance until the early hours of the morning, but the Finns could tell they were starting to break. As the battle was quickly turning against them, Soviet High Command finally authorized Zelentsev to retreat back to Yundisranda.
Wow.
On the night of December 28th, the Soviets started crossing the frozen lake Kyantajärvi to the north. A day later, only a small force remained in the village. They were destroyed by Kari, who managed to successfully reoccupy Suomussalmi.
Damn, so that small force that was left, they're pretty much there just to keep, the Finns occupied so the rest of them can kind of just could retreat, or they just got caught there. But wow, the Soviets are definitely, getting pushed back here. Like, Finland's definitely been, seems like they've been pushing them around this episode. Wow. Man, I think the Soviets are in over their head. I mean, they got friggin' generals retreating, really, running away from their troops, Wow. Good job, Finland.
Salasvuo's offensive had been a success, and just in time, as the 44th had at last assembled on the Raate road. As Salasvuo had taken the initiative and Sissidaivel was marching his forces to take Yundisranda, Vinogradov felt as scared as his men were for the situation they were in. His division was highly mechanized and didn't have enough room to maneuver on the small forest road. His Ukrainian men didn't know how to ski, and the forest spoke Finnish as the enemy fell on them. For him, it was a deadly trap to be on the Raate road, so he asked.
Yeah, you have so many people, and they're very small, so you can probably only do a few people wide going down this road. So numbers mean absolutely nothing, because you could have the whole Finnish forces basically can guerrilla warfare here from each side, and there's nothing everyone from behind them can do about it but just sit there and wait, because they can't get through. I mean, they're just sitting ducks, and this is the Finnish land, so they know exactly what's going on here. And I just feel like this has a slaughter written all over it right now. But the Soviets have tanks. That is definitely one thing they got going for them right now. But yeah, it would definitely help if they were able to ski.
For him, it was a deadly trap to be on the Raate road, so he asked permission to withdraw, but the High Command wouldn't allow him. On December 30th, General Tuompo ordered Salasvuo to destroy the 44th Division, reinforcing him with the 1st Sissi Battalion of specialized ski troops. As soon as the 9th soldiers had rested after the fearsome battle, Salasvuo started to send them to reinforce Mäkiniemi's position. Sissi was placed southwest behind the front, with the objective of looping around the enemy lines and attacking towards the town of Haukala, while Kari was ordered to circle towards Alavoki, proceeding in the direction of Raate from the southeast. On January 1st, Mäkiniemi launched a frontal attack against Haukala, where Vinogradov's main forces were concentrated. By afternoon, Sissi suffered heavy losses while attempting their objective and would have to be recalled, but one of Mäkiniemi's battalions managed to advance through the road undetected and capture the Soviet artillery on the road. Vinogradov launched one counterattack after another, but he couldn't dislodge the Finns from their positions. By the end of the day, he was forced to take up a hedgehog defensive formation, placing the 146th Regiment in defense of the southern flank. At this point, Kari had reached the frozen lake Vuokkajärvi and was planning to attack the following day. Near Sanginaho, the entrenched 146th managed to repel Kari's attempts to break through, but with their supply route compromised, Vinogradov's forces started to starve. Furthermore, the freezing weather was inflicting a heavy toll on the 44th's strength, and whenever the Soviets started a campfire to warm themselves, the Finns would open fire with their machine guns from the forests. On January 3rd, Task Force Kari was assigned to assault the town of...
Man, that's gotta suck, right? I mean, you're like freezing to death, like freezing. And it's basically like, you gotta weigh your options because you want to get warm, but then obviously you put a spotlight exactly where you are. So, the Finns just wait in the forest, see that, and it's just an easy shoot towards the fire. So it's like, are you, which one do you want? You want to be shot at, or do you want to try, or do you want to freeze? Wow, man, that just had to be that had to be so punishing, for those troops back then, man. And then basically had no say so, they're kind of like just doing what they're told to do, man. They have no other option. Man, it had to be rough.
Sanginlampi, the main base of the 146th. As their initial assault failed, Kari decided to encircle the Soviet position with a pincer movement the following day. The Finns slowly progressed through the Soviet defences, causing them 300 casualties before their foes' withdrawal. With Sanginlampi under his control, Kari defeated a tank counterattack and advanced a few kilometers to the north of the town. Food and ammunition were running low for the Soviets. The 146th had been pushed back to the road, and the Finns were constantly harassing them. Meanwhile, reinforcements arrived from Yundisranda to relieve Mäkiniemi's forces. Salasvuo knew the situation was ideal, and so he gave orders to encircle and destroy the enemy in the area between Lake Kokkajärvi and Haukila using a tactic known as Moti. For these attacks, the Finns ploughed winter roads through the snow away from the enemy positions. These functioned as jumping-off points, allowing the defenders to mass troops together quickly and undetectably. Although the Finns failed to occupy the Raate road as planned, the Soviets were now surrounded both from the north and south, so they couldn't withdraw or move from their positions. On January 6th, a battalion of the 9th managed to capture a section of the road near Lake Kokkajärvi and immediately dug in defensive positions. Later that day, Kari managed to sever the road west from the battalion and then take the Soviet artillery at Kokkajärvi. At this point, Haukila had been completely encircled in a moti, and Salasvuo commanded his forces to cut the Raate road at multiple points, creating several smaller moti. In the end, Vinogradov had no other choice but to retreat eastward towards Lake Kokkajärvi, even in spite of High Command's orders to fight to the last man. The Soviets gathered on the road for one last chaotic breakout attempt, suffering heavy casualties against Finnish machine gun fire. But at Kokkajärvi, the Soviets found that...
I mean, if you're trying to... It's either stay and die, or trying to retreat, but you're also probably going to, most likely, have a good chance of dying. So they really had no choice but to try and push back, even if they were going to, have a good chance of getting shot, because they stay there, you're still going to have the same, you might be able to last a little longer, but you're probably most likely going to die because you're surrounded. It's like, man, look at this road, jeez.
Kari had taken this position and was waiting for them. The 44th troops were soon defeated and fled into the woods in desperation. Meanwhile, Choikov had sent the 305th Rifle Regiment to rescue Vinogradov's men. They cleared a 9-kilometer channel from the border into Finland, enabling the Soviet soldiers that managed to flee to the forests to successfully escape.
Nice.
By January the 7th, the Raate road was completely in Finnish hands. Mäkiniemi's men alone had captured more than 1,000 prisoners that day, and the 44th Division had ceased to exist as a fighting unit. The loss of more than 4,000 men and much equipment, including vehicles and horses, was a heavy blow to the Red Army. The Soviet High Command's decision of maintaining the 44th in its place while Zelentsev retreated was a huge mistake, and although Vinogradov had wanted to retreat from the start, he would pay for that mistake with his life. Meanwhile, Mannerheim awarded Salasvuo and his men with his gratitude as this great victory was celebrated in Helsinki. But the war wasn't over. In the far north, another operation was taking place at the same time. Commander Valerian Frolov and his 14th Army invaded the area around Petsamo on November 30th, trying to cut off Finland's only Arctic port. Furthermore, Frolov was supported by the 122nd Rifle Division of the 9th Army, striking towards central Lapland. The port of Petsamo had been placed under the defense of Task Force Pennanen, a small unit with the strength of 3 companies. Captain Antti Pennanen and his men were barely holding their ground against the might of Frolov's 52nd Rifle Division, but the Soviet advance was slowed down due to temperatures below -40 degrees Celsius.
How important right now is like this far northern battle right now, because Helsinki, and it seems like the more important towns are in the south, and obviously they got the port there. I'm not sure how big that port was, but man, it's going to be even colder up north here. And they're going to have to go through a lot more forest and roads to get all the way back down there, man. I just don't know. Maybe it'd be better if we pull these troops down. I don't know. Well, that wasn't helping either, so I don't know. I don't know what the best strategy is, so never mind.
Realizing he didn't have enough men to defend Petsamo, Pennanen retreated south and started a tiring campaign of attrition against the 14th Army. Frolov had successfully achieved his objective of taking Petsamo and the nickel ore mines of the region, but his new orders to push south saw his army constantly harassed by small Finnish raiding parties. By the end of the year,
they don't have the strength to do it, so it's like maybe get them to freeze to death, maybe cut their supply lines off, just like punish them. Because the longer they're in there, the more chance he gets to run out of food. But I guess you can't retreat too much because you don't really want to give them too much, land.
Relentless winter and sniper attacks had completely halted Frolov's advance. Further south, Colonel Peter Shevchenko's 122nd Division was rapidly progressing towards the town of Sala. Shevchenko's objective was to capture the capital of the Lapland region, Rovaniemi, and then advance to the port of Tornio on the Gulf of Bothnia. In response, General Tuompo had assigned the defense of the village to Major Vilho Roininen. Task Force Roininen had been hastily retreating from the border ever since Shevchenko started his advance. He knew that his force was no match against the 122nd, and despite receiving reinforcements on December 6th, he would have to surrender the town 3 days later. As Tuompo's main forces were in the region of Suomussalmi, and he had his full attention on that front, on December 13th, defense of the Lapland region was assigned to a separate force, Group Lapland, led by General Kurt Wallenius. Wallenius quickly decided that the Soviet advance had to be stopped, and so he started forming a defensive line in front of the town of Kemijärvi. While Wallenius tried to call on reinforcements, he placed Roininen, who had by now mustered 4 battalions, as the main defense unit on Lake Jotsajärvi. By December 15th, Shevchenko believed that the Finns weren't able to build a strong defense in the region, and with the reinforcement of the 273rd Mountain Rifle Regiment, he decided to split his forces. He sent the 273rd towards a northerly route past Pelkoseniemi village, with the objective of cutting off the supply routes of the Finnish forces still fighting in the Petsamo region. Meanwhile, he would lead the 122nd to directly assault Kemijärvi. Despite their defences, the Finns were worryingly struggling with the 273rd's drive northward. In response, Wallenius got the command of the 40th Regiment and placed it at Pelkoseniemi. But by the time the 40th arrived at the village, it was already too late. with the 273rd ferry crossing the Kittinen River to the north edge of Pelkosenniemi and establishing a bridgehead. On December 17th, the two forces chaotically clashed at the bridgehead. Despite the Finns' well-thought-out counterattacks, the Soviets pushed forward tenaciously, and eventually 2 tanks broke the Finnish line. But as the Finns were fleeing, the Soviets were suddenly hit by an undetected Finnish relief force that managed to rout them with ease.
Wow.
As the invaders began to retreat, leaving behind precious equipment, Wallenius felt relieved that the 273rd's advance had been stopped and that Pelkosenniemi was secure. The 273rd would go on to retreat back to Saja village, where they wouldn't be a threat for the remainder of the war. From December 17th onwards, the 122nd launched repeated attacks on Roinenum's forces, but the Finns held firm. On December 20th, Shevchenko split his forces across a 3-pronged attack that would encircle and then crush the Finnish defences. But Roinenum was prepared for this, and he commanded a limited counterattack on the south side of Lake Jotsijärvi that sent the Soviets packing. Shevchenko's assault had failed miserably, with his forces ending up encircled in a motti. On December 21st, Shevchenko was ordered to establish a temporary defensive position in order to regroup and prepare for another attack. But Wallenius wouldn't allow his foe to regroup. He reinforced Roinenum and prepared to break the Soviet lines on January 2nd. The Finnish assault was a failure, and this prompted Shevchenko to attempt a breakthrough 3 days later. Choikov tried to reinforce the 122nd with the 88th Rifle Division, but on January 13th he realized these forces wouldn't arrive on time, and so he ended up ordering Shevchenko to withdraw back to Lake Makajärvi at Salla. The Soviet forces proceeded to fortify their positions on the west bank of the lake, while the Finns set their own troops into an extended semicircle in front of these defences, preparing to recapture their town. Wallenius placed Task Force SFK in command of the operation, a force composed of Swedish and Norwegian volunteers led by the Swedish general Ernst Linde. Linde managed to repel any further attacks by...
Wow, we got Sweden entering the war here. Man, they're volunteers, man. They're like, we want to go help our buddies. We want to help our buddies, let's go fight for the Finns. That's awesome, dude. That's pretty cool to see. Nice to see some new flags coming into play here.
By the Soviets, but he lacked sufficient men to encircle and destroy the 122nd. Salla would remain in control of the Soviets for the remainder of the war, but the Lapland group would see complete success in their objective of containing the invaders. The loss of Petsamo and the nickel ore mines was a hard one for the Finns, but the Lapland and Oulu regions had remained largely untouched, and that was celebrated back in Helsinki as a great victory. Once again, thanks to Conflict of Nations for sponsoring.
Wow, good job, Kings and Generals. This has actually been a really good series. Because, there's not a whole lot as far as, I guess, towns and stuff up here. I mean, sure there is, but, they pretty much have to just stop them from getting down south, and they've been doing that so far. I mean, Finland is like a war of attrition. They just got to keep them back. I mean, they'll do the tug and pull all day long as they don't make it, to where the Soviets want to go. So, wow, Finland definitely seems like they're winning from this episode. I mean, the Soviets are making some inground up north, but I don't know how, like I said before, how effective that's going to be, as far as the whole war is concerned. But wow, definitely really cool, because I never really knew anything about this war at all until now. So, you don't really learn about this kind of war when it comes to World War II. And World War II is probably the most documented, most outplayed as far as documentaries that there is. I mean, there's so much World War II movies. There's so much on it, but they never. But obviously, there's so much on it, but usually it's either basically America taking Japan, or it's trying to take or it's Germany. The Allies trying to take Germany. That's usually the two things they concentrate on. So stuff like these wars, they don't really get noticed. So it'd be kind of not my next year, down the line. It'll be kind of cool to obviously come back to World War II and probably do different kind of like smaller wars inside of the same World War, just stuff that we don't know about. But that's down the line. Right now, we're still doing the Winter War in the Arctic. That's what we just finished up. I think this is a five-part series. Not correct. So yeah, we got 2 more episodes left, guys. But anyways, guys, please hit that like and subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below any tips or tricks I haven't seen yet, or excuse me, maybe some stuff I've overlooked. I would really be appreciated. But yeah, definitely happy with this war. It's definitely kind of cool to see the roads and all that stuff, and they're getting blocked, and you see the roads, you see all that land around it, but it's not that easy just to truck through that. And yeah, skis definitely comes in handy, because you can't, like, some of that snow is going to be really deep. Expect like if you have like waist deep snow, you're not going nowhere. Like nothing's going anywhere through that. I mean, it'd take you all day to go like 100 meters or something like that, right? So wow, definitely interesting stuff. A different kind of dynamic from what we normally do, because we've done winter stuff, but as far as like winter wars, nothing really. This is the first war I think I've done where it's been this far north, and so definitely some crazy stuff. But yeah, like, subscribe, catch you guys in future videos. Let me know your thoughts below in the comments. And yeah, I am out of here. See you guys. Have a great night. Thank you. See you on part 4. Out.